G'day guys, I'm going to keep this short and sweet like I said in the preview. It's Monday and I hadn't planned to do this review on Monday because I thought an announcement would be made and I could talk about that as well. I'm actually glad the announcement hasn't been made. I literally could not be stuffed yesterday. I really couldn't. So I want to keep it pretty short and sweet. Regardless of whether an announcement's been made today, whether it's announced tomorrow, whatever, I still think that David Teague will go. I just think, you know, if we talk about Brendan Bolton, when he left, the win-loss ratio just got too much for him. And Teague, it's around the lack, I suppose, the lack of growth and improvement over a 2-year period. I'm not talking about that little spike we had when he took over as interim coach. I'm talking over the last 2 years. And there's no doubt to me the Gold Coast game and the North game put the icing on the cake for him as well. But I don't necessarily want to talk about that because I think it was an honest performance on the weekend against the Giants. A really honest performance. And I know that might sound patronising. But I sort of left feeling after that game that maybe there's a little bit left in the tank for David Teague. And that's the trickery of being a supporter when you see a performance like that in round 23. So does he deserve a third year? I don't know. I really don't know. Does he deserve to see out a 3-year contract? Not based on what we've seen over 2 years. That lack of improvement. But who knows? Who knows? Who actually knows? And as it says, sera, what will be, what will be. And we're going to have to live by this decision. It's going to upset a lot of people. But we move forward. And I always say this, as supporters, we see with our eyes, we see what happens when the players cross the white line. And for 2 years, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been great. It hasn't been good. The performance against the Giants, there was one thing that stood out like dog's balls to me, and the irony of it. And maybe a big reason why Teague won't be around next season. I'm not saying the sole reason, but just part of the reason. And for me, the images and the vision of Patrick Cripps sitting on the bench after half time with his jacket on or his wind sheeter, he had his hoodie on, his wind sheeter. Sort of going. He looked to me not engaged, as you would hope a captain to be in that situation, putting aside their disappointment of being injured, but really sitting there and wanting to encourage players as they come off. Okay, maybe he was, maybe we didn't see that, but what I saw from a lot of vision of Cripps throughout the second half, it certainly didn't appear that way. But the irony of it was that his replacement was Paddy Dow, who'd been dropped for Cripper. And Cripper went into that game underdone, yeah? Which to me reeks of a lack of leadership on his behalf if the coach didn't know about it. And I find that hard to believe that the coach didn't know about it, and I'll get to that in a minute. But for Paddy Dow to come on, the bloke that had been dropped and made really the scapegoat of a 95-point thrashing the week before, where he could have dropped half the team, and I understand his injuries, but why a 21-year-old who'd come back into the team and had grown in some confidence, admittedly had some quiet games, to drop him was just fucking ironic with the situation. And just the root of everything that's gone wrong over a 2-year period. And when Teague clipped Cripps in that press conference, right? And I wanted this to happen because in my preview I said, you know, you're swinging the baseball bat at the board and telling him you haven't had the support, but where's the accountability from the players that you have had so much belief in over this 2-year period, David? And then he said his last words were, from a leadership point of view, we need to get better. He was talking about Patrick Cripps. He also spoke about the fact that he didn't know, or he supposedly didn't know, that he had an injury. And why would he take that into a game? Then I thought to myself, this job's been too big for Teague. And maybe 2 seasons is not enough for him. Maybe 2 seasons not enough for him to get it right. And he backs himself in regards to building relationships with the players. Okay, and he sees that as one of his main strengths, that he can build relationships. He mentioned that when he was appointed coach of the football club in that press conference, building relationships. But it's easy to build relationships when you're an assistant coach and you're just a line coach and you're dealing just with a small amount of players. And there's no doubt that the players like him as a person, and there's no doubt when he worked at Adelaide, they loved him as the forward coach. Okay, he could really hone in on that small group. But I would have thought, that your closest connection, okay, would be with your captain, yeah? With your captain. Or in our sense, your captains. But I'm talking about Cripper here. And David Teague's inability over a 2-year period to tame the beast of Patrick Cripps. This might sound like a knock on Cripper. It definitely isn't, because I actually think like a lot of other people are saying he should be removed as captain, and you get Walsh in or Wiedering in. That might happen. But I actually think Cripper still could be a good captain with better guidance and a stronger figure above him. And I don't think David Teague has been able to do that. I go back to that game against Hawthorn last year at Optus Stadium. You remember it. You wouldn't have forgot it. And this was happening long ago, this disconnection with his skipper and this whole problem of leadership. 31 points we got beaten by Hawthorn at Optus Stadium in a really important game. Hawthorn were down and out. In fact, I don't think they won another game for the year after that. They beat us by 31 points. They steamrolled us. Cripper had 27 that day, and if you go through the stats, say in 5 or 6 years' time, you looked at the stats and go, oh, Patrick Cripps played well that day. He had 27 touches. It was actually the worst captain's game I've seen an individual play at Carlton. The amount of times he didn't do the team things first on that occasion was staggering. Absolutely staggering. And it hasn't been as bad since that day, but it's happened consistently. It has happened consistently. And it's almost been encouraged. Well, nothing's been done about it. Not encouraged, but nothing's been done about it. The fact that he's been able just to play injured, the fact that he's consistently doesn't do the team things first, speak volumes about leadership and whether Teague has the capabilities in him. Is he strong enough? Maybe Juddy was right. The villain, Chris Judd, the villain. Maybe he was right when he said he was onto something, when he said this group doesn't need a coach with training wheels. Maybe this group needed an Alistair Clarkson or a Ross Lyon who are available now, to get the best out of all the players, not just 8 or 10 players, but the best out of everyone. Interesting thoughts. I'll see you guys soon.